Get the impression that on his Zoom, the Hollywood sign is very visible in the background.
Yeah.
I like Son Heung-min, who just said, I'm sure he knows what he's doing.
Makeba Bala, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Football Ramble. England drew, Ireland lost, and Germany got gubbed. It's Monday, 11th of September. I'm Marcus Speller.
I'm Jim Campbell.
I'm Luke Moore.
And I'm Vidushan Huntaraja. Hello, you lovely lot. Welcome to the Football Ramble. The working week has just begun, of course.
Keys are back in the pocket.
Into the pocket they go. But don't worry, international football is still here. So it still feels like a holiday.
Yeah.
One of those holidays when you're younger where you're forced to go in a caravan
With
for
your
3
parents.
days.
Yeah.
Toilet's not working.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Youngsters don't do that kind of thing anymore, do they? I don't know.
Arjen Robben smacking free kicks against the caravan. Shut up. It's the middle of the night. You shouldn't even still be doing this.
Oh, what a man. I'd like you to start, Luke Moore, with your highlights of the weekend.
My highlight of the weekend is simply the thing that made me laugh the most across the weekend. And if I may be self-reverential, it's not that self-reverential because I wasn't actually on the show itself.
Right.
It was the Ramble Reacts between yourself, Marcus, and Jim sat to my left.
And what did we do wrong?
Well, I haven't got time for that. The highlight for me, and I was washing up my son's bottles.
Oh yeah.
I thought I'll put the Ramble Reacts on while I'm doing that.
Yeah.
And I cracked up laughing when you quite earnestly, Marcus, read out a piece of correspondence in which the listener told you to suck his balls.
Suck my balls.
Yeah.
Suck my balls. Oh, that's what it meant.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I see. Oh, you did us, didn't he, Jim?
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Okay. Well,
I'd like to hear
bring him in here and I'll do it.
And to finish off the highlight, please welcome to the studio. No, I'd like to hear more from him. And I hope he's a patron. And if he's not, he should be.
Yeah.
But if he's going to go around telling you to suck his balls, he should be paying.
He also called us... He should be. And he also called us cunnies as well.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I didn't like that as much. Just a bit coarse.
It's very coarse, Hence I've softened it there.
For a Saturday morning, it's a bit coarse. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Jim, what about you?
Obviously, it's been a big weekend for international football, but there's action elsewhere.
No way.
In the Costa Rican League in particular, they had their annual mascots race, which is really more of an assault course.
That's nice.
Absolutely brilliant stuff.
Jim, not even they were watching Saudi Arabia v Costa Rica.
We'll do something else.
Let's watch all these felt cartoon things run around.
Yeah. You've organised what? You do realise that's the same time as the mascot race?
Yeah.
Which is more of an assault course.
We'll just do it in protest.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, it was great. It was won by a pretty impressive cow, actually, that led the pack the whole way through it. There was a dog dressed as a sort of like what looks like the Costa Rican equivalent of the FBI. There was a huge...
It wasn't a bloke dressed as a dog that was...
No, it was a bloke dressed as... Indeed, it was a bloke
you said
dressed
it was
as
a dog dressed as... And I was like, hang on a minute, this is quite expansive.
Yeah.
Also a very big chicken and what looked like a dumbbell that were really, really struggling. It was just very wholesome stuff.
I've got no chance.
Yeah. It was very heavily weighted to the top end of the bloke.
Right.
To be fair. He didn't have any chance at all.
Also a very big chicken.
A very big chicken.
Yeah. I'd like to think that they would have some foreign mascots in there because we know you love the Bradford City Gent if he's still going. So yeah.
Cyril the Swan always used to do
Cyril
well.
the Swan was there.
The Bradford City Gent, and this cannot be stressed enough. He lost a lot of weight because he became quite ill and was then fired because he didn't represent what the City Gent stood for, which is essentially a fat man with a pie. He carried a pie all the time as well.
Yeah.
He was great.
I love a highlight of the weekend which tells you more about the person's weekend.
Absolutely. Vish, what about you?
My highlight of the weekend
You went
comes
to...
from
go on.
Germany against Japan.
Yes.
Not for the result,
Okay.
but because I
More
think it
on
was
that.
a celebration for the second Japan goal. They caught a Japanese fan in a bald cap, but with a traditional top knot,
Nice.
Oh, wow.
which I didn't know you could get. All for it. Where can we buy them?
Japan, mate. You can get anything you can think of in Japan.
Pete, if you're listening, and you're probably not, you don't even listen when you're on, can you get us some bald caps with traditional top knot?
Can I just say, when I cycled through Islington today to get here, I cycled on the border of Hackney, which is obviously the.
But you keep it
trend
in Jeremy
capital.
Corbyn country, don't you?
I do. I like to. Yeah, I do. Jeremy
Get on with it.
Corbyn. I saw a man, a fully grown adult man, dressed in a quite a trendy way.
This was you bumped into me on the way. You talking about me?
I did. No, I want to talk about you.
Okay.
Crossing the zebra crossing, so obviously I was on my bike, so I had to stop, which I did. He was wearing a top hat.
Nice.
Wow.
Unironically, a top
Yeah, but
hat.
that's just that part of the
No, I said to
city,
him,
isn't it?
Were you in the Costa Rican mascot race?
yeah. Oh, dear me.
What's your highlight, Marcus?
Well, I thought Vish was going to say his cousin's wedding, but obviously that was less
By
important.
the by.
But there we are. My highlight of the weekend was seeing Alexander Mitrovic score a hat-trick, and I just thought, I just know one day he's going to come home.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the second time
He's
in recent
already
weeks you've done this. You've done it with João Palhinha.
Yeah.
You are a widowed detective or a divorced detective at the start of a cop movie, and you need to deal with it.
Yeah.
No. I know he's
I love
only,
seeing my ex with someone else the other day.
he's only going away for a bit, and then he'll be back.
He has
It'll be
quite
fine.
literally forgotten what Fulham is already. He would have been a fan on the map.
That's too far.
He wouldn't.
That's
He wouldn't.
too far.
He's that type of character.
I like my favourite players going to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with it.
We've said it before, and we'll say it again to you, Marcus. If you love something, leave it alone.
All right.
Stop bothering it.
Okay, fine. I won't have that as a highlight. What I'll have as a highlight is England getting a very good point on the road.
I was going to say,
qualification.
I think Gareth Southgate should have the right to let Alexander Mitrovic go to Saudi Arabia.
Up yours. Now let's move on to Ukraine 1, England 1. England still unbeaten in qualification.
Chemical Alley. He's Chemical Alley when it comes to England, isn't he? What a great day.
What a great reference, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, dear, for those who sadly remember. Yes, of course, in the stadium in Poland was packed full of Ukrainian fans who created quite the atmosphere. Incredible scenes at full time, really, with the players and the fans. Obviously, all the stuff that country has gone through and is going through. You
talking about England?
Indeed, yeah. There was great jubilant scenes, and what was lovely in the post match, of course, was seeing Rebrov and Shevchenko stood next to each other.
Yeah,
I think someone play them a through ball.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting that they. I don't know if this is the case, and it obviously probably isn't. But it's like Shevchenko's done the job, and they're like, right, who's going to do it now? Well, obviously Rebrov.
Yeah,
he's got.
Well, surely they've got to be one and two. I mean, if anybody remembers that partnership, and I know they did actually talk about it on Channel 4.
Joe Cole spoke about it very well. I thought.
He did, because
it was like a fan.
Oh well, as he should do. Yeah, because those two,
it was fantastic.
Those two were magnificent, and they should have been in the final against Man United in '99. But anyway,
who's going to ever forget Rebrov at Spurs? You know.
Well, I think that's sadly the case. But any excuse to go back.
Sadly the case.
It's sadly the case that people will remember that about Rebrov rather than what he did at Dynamo Kiev.
If you're a bit young for this,
Dynamo Kiev,
Rebrov was one of those players where his league form at Spurs was pretty bad, but in terms of their international partnership, it was one of those phenomenal things where it was just like there was a touch of magic about it, wasn't there? And it just I guess right place, right time for both of them, and they sort of elevated each other. And Shevchenko, actually, I think he's one of the most underrated players of that generation
because of his time in Chelsea.
Possibly
in Italy, he's very highly rated.
I don't think sort of across Europe he's widely regarded.
Oh, I think he would
actually
be. I think it's here that people often go, but he's a legend at
I
Milan.
think also it helps that because he was AC Milan, like him in that AC Milan shirt is an iconic.
Totally. We should go back to the actual game, though. Sorry about that, everybody. But thank you for indulging.
Don't apologise to them.
No,
I don't want to listen. They don't have to.
Well, careful.
Should we? We'll wait 30 seconds because people might skip through this to try and get analysis. So on 30 seconds, let's start the conversation again.
Listen, they ain't skipping through this to get any kind of analysis. Mate. Trust me. What do you think this is?
But it was a handy point for Ukraine, though, because they now sit second in the group, and Italy drawing in North Macedonia is a very big result.
It's lucky, isn't it? Essentially, really.
Well,
it's done us a big favour there.
Well, it's done. I think it's done Ukraine more of a favour. You'd fancy England to qualify, whether Italy would have won that game or not. But yes, of course, it does make things a little bit more straightforward for, as I say, Ukraine and England as well. I mean, it's not the first time North Macedonia have got a good result against Italy, of course, in recent years. But Ukraine, they were really up for this, and they needed to be. And England weren't great. Let's be perfectly honest. I think sometimes the reaction can be a little over the top. With,
Why are you looking at me?
Mate.
With England, but I think the thing is, like, we're so into the national team in this country, as there are in other countries. But I think England fans, there is a real, it's a real event when England play, and of course, of so many disappointments in the past, da-di-da-di-da. And the thing is, you know what it's like with football fans. When you get given some good performances and good results, you don't go, oh, well, that's great. So if we do have a poor performance next, the law of averages will let that one go. Yeah, well, no, we want that every time.
Yeah.
And of course,
why can't it be better?
Well,
each
indeed.
time?
I mean, that 7-0 demolition of North Macedonia, of course, was just scintillating stuff, and the great goals that were scored and so on.
It's only North Macedonia, mate.
Yeah, but of course, when you do play away against Ukraine, who are not a bad side, of course, England are better than them, and draw 1-1, and England weren't great. You know, people can, I think, be a little over the top. What was your thoughts on it, Jim?
That it was a bit of a sticky one. That England weren't great. I do go with the sort of majority opinion that I don't think it makes sense to start Harry Maguire, because it concerns me that he'd be a player that you'd even be considering to start in the Euros. And they're just a little bit disjointed up front, but that is what happens when a few new players come in. I think, it's a great goal from Kyle Walker and a great ball from Harry Kane, but I think the reaction to it has been hysterical. And actually, I think that's the most interesting takeaway from it. And actually, the thing I'm most concerned about is not the result itself or even the performance itself. It's been the reaction to it. Because you see now that the expectation levels are kind of back where they were before Germany in 2006. Do you remember people really thought we were going to win that World Cup without really any good reason to think that? Whereas obviously I think
England had a good side. I mean, come on.
They did have a good side, but I think if you looked at what had come before and you looked at their record against better opposition, it was naive to think that it wouldn't end as it always ended. This time feels a little bit different because England have performed in tournaments. We beat Germany in the Euros and we've had some really good results. We've won penalty shootouts under Southgate, all this stuff that gets kind of forgotten and brushed over because people say, oh, he's had an easy run to the semis and the final, and et cetera. But if you look at the reaction to this, the comments on England's Instagram posts and all over Twitter and phone-ins, things like that, like the Southgate out brigade are very, very loud. I think us in the studio, we are probably it certainly feels like we're in the minority of people who think it would be insane to change the manager. But there are people thinking we should sack Southgate now and like try someone else before the Euros. And obviously that's deranged. I think it's often the case that, the angriest people shout the loudest. But that pressure is going to build. And I think it's going to be a very difficult environment to navigate for Southgate in particular before this tournament. And I worry that we're getting back to a situation where England start a tournament at a disadvantage because they're almost playing against their own media and in some cases their own fans.
Yeah, I mean, the media is one thing. I mean, I think some would argue that Southgate's made a bit of a rod for his own back in a positive and a negative sense. The positive sense would be the previous finishes at tournaments to give England fans genuine hope of winning. But the negative would be, you mentioned Maguire there, and Henderson, an unpopular figure at the moment, understandably, and also 33 playing in the Saudi league. Some people are saying, why should he be picked? Yeah. there's those things, and look, you've been among many people sort of quite vocal about that kind of thing. So when you have a chance of bedding in one or two players, he tried out a few things. It didn't quite work.
No.
But so how do you feel about it?
Well, I think that Henderson's performance probably justified on its own the decision should be made to not pick him anymore. I was also confused as to why he stayed on the pitch for that amount of time, but I'll maybe come on to that. I think that the problem with England when they have to have a little bit of a mix and a blend and a bit of a change is that they too regularly lose their tempo. And I think when you've got key players, like in this case, it was Maddison and Bellingham, I thought, playing really in positions and roles they don't play for their club, it can get frustrating for the less, Jim, not everyone is as temperate in their mood as me, not everyone's I'm not a type like an emotionally led character.
No,
a lot of people can be.
Not everyone can be as zen.
But exactly, and people get frustrated. And if you take Maddison and Bellingham as an example, before I come on to Henderson maybe, well, Maddison's played brilliantly this season, really playing as a number 10. He's got a licence to roam for Spurs. He goes deep and gets the ball. He makes things happen. He makes things tick, right? And he can do that, ironically, because Harry Kane's no longer there and isn't going to get in his way. Now, England don't play in that way. And Maddison was playing off the left in a position where he couldn't really affect the game. So to me, it's a bit like, you're great. What you do is brilliant. So come and do some stuff with us, but do different stuff. And it doesn't
not
work.
A far cry, though.
Yeah, he has played in wide position for Leicester, though.
He has, but my point is...
And Southgate did say before the game that he would drift inside and give an extra body in midfield.
But Maddison's been playing brilliantly off the wide for Leicester and never been picked for England. He doesn't get in the squad. Now, he's playing now because Grealish obviously had to pull out, and he plays him in that position off the left, and I felt like he couldn't affect the game in the way that his form suggested he should be picked in the first place, which I think is a disconnect. I'm not necessarily criticising Gareth Southgate because everyone's got to go and do a job, but I thought that was a bit odd. I also thought the same about Bellingham. Plays Bellingham on a bit wider. Bellingham's played really centrally for Real Madrid and been fantastic.
But the things you're saying is that Maddison and Bellingham at Real Madrid and Spurs have not that been long in the tooth in those roles in those clubs. Whereas Bellingham played on the left of the three in the World Cup for England and was pretty good. In fact, our very own Vertusian and myself were talking about how we'd like to see Maddison maybe in the midfield three, switching with whether it be Foden or Eze, I think you mentioned, and one or two others. So I think...
Yeah, but let me finish the point.
Okay.
The point is just that you need to understand that it's going to seem a bit disjointed and perhaps a little bit lacking in tempo, and you're going to get the odd occasional poor result away from home if you're asking these players to meet up once every 3 or 4 months and do a different job. And that is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to explain why it happens.
Yeah, sure, but international football players are asked to do different jobs. I mean, if Maddison's asked to do the same job, he's not going to play much because Spurs play a little bit different to England. I don't think it's... I think he, in the midfield three, I think that there was a good argument for having in future games maybe try and Trent Alexander-Arnold in there. He was excellent against North Macedonia. Yeah. I know that was a much easier game. But Vish, what were your thoughts on what happened?
Well, this conversation in particular is one we always have with players of that ilk, like Bellingham and Maddison, like attacking players who don't necessarily fit squarely into a particular hole, a particular slot in a formation that Southgate has. And I suppose I'm going a little bit further back to Jim's point about the expectation into 2006. Now, that was built purely on personnel, really.
Yeah.
And how those players were performing for their club size. And I can kind of understand that. But as Jim also correctly pointed out, there wasn't necessarily a body of work there to suggest that England were going to go and do something at that World Cup.
Also, in the noughties, the Premier League was really coming into what we now know the Premier League as.
This time, though, because of the development with the team in particular, I can kind of understand that a bit more. And I can kind of get the frustration a bit more because I think it is a blind spot that Southgate has, in part because he builds from back to front. And there's become two places where he doesn't really need to focus on all that much in Kane and one of the wide positions. Now, it used to be Sterling, now it's Saka, and it probably will be Sterling when Sterling eventually breaks. When Sterling comes back into the England squad, he will be a starter. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, possibly.
There'll be a bit of that. And I think in midfield, it's where he's always struggled to... I don't know if it's trusting himself. I think some people, some managers have blind spots. This might well be his. I don't think he knows how to work with players like Grealish, Foden, those kind of half space type players. And I don't necessarily think that's a problem because you don't really have to deal with them as a manager. And to be fair, when was the last time an England manager's had to deal with so many of them this time around? So he ends up playing them out wide. And I can understand why England fans are annoyed by that because we have so much talent now. So much talent that attacking talent that give the raw for England. I think the other thing that doesn't help is Maguire because he's too watchful on the ball now because he plays so little, because he's so low on confidence.
He's so slow.
Yeah, but he does that thing which is an absolute tell of a player out of form. He looks at his first touch.
Yeah.
Every time he gets the ball, he looks down. He looks up, looks down, takes a couple of steps forward, and suddenly everything's gone.
And even when he's in good form, he's always seemed quite cumbersome.
Yeah.
I always felt like it was a little bit overblown how good he was on the ball, even when he was playing well.
Yeah.
There was one of the things I liked from Bellingham in the Ukraine game was there was a point in the first half, because England started really well. I thought England were very bright in patches. There was a point, maybe 25 minutes in, where we couldn't see it because of where the camera was, but I think the co-commentator mentioned it. Bellingham was shouting at the defenders to come forward with the ball. Just come up. Just move up to the halfway line and just stay on the halfway line. Bring the ball up. Let's properly squeeze them and let's kind of put them under far more pressure than we are doing.
Yeah. I think, a lot of the criticism is of how conservative he is in not just big games, actually, really, but most games. And the midfield is the absolute area where that shows the most. I think with Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham in the middle, that should be enough security for your third player to not be Jordan Henderson.
But that's immediately different to what Bellingham does for Real Madrid, which is Lucas complaining about.
I think I kind of agree with Jim here. What I was going to go on to say was I think that the formation for the players he's got in that game against Ukraine was wrong. I think you can get away with playing Bellingham and Rice. Play Bellingham a bit deeper. He could have played Maddison ahead of them, Kane up front on his own, and he could have played two wide players.
Rashford and
Saka, right? That, to me, it's like screaming out to be done against a team like Ukraine, who, they've got some good players. They're at home, all the rest of it. They're not to be overlooked, of course, but England are a better team than Ukraine. He could have played that. He could have played that formation. It just seems that he's wedded to. He's like, now we play 4-3-3, and that's all we're ever going to play, and we're going to put the players in the positions, whatever, and that's the only formation we're going to play. And I think against a good team, come tournament time, it's going to look difficult for them.
And that's what I think is the frustration, isn't it? Because when you look at the quality of these players now, England are a really good team. They can be thinking about going toe-to-toe with big teams and trying to dominate games and control games. If you look at the difference between the first squad he had and the squad now, there is a huge rise in the quality. It's absolutely massive. And you have to wonder, has Southgate himself risen in quality as a coach at that same rate? Because that is part of the deal. That is part of the project that he's set out to enact, which is to make us competitive at the top end. And I wonder if this sort of performance and this sort of team is reflective of the fact that he has still got these conservative tendencies, and essentially we're not going to get beyond that.
I think the reason why he does have those conservative tendencies is because English football has not changed enough. Yeah. And I think that that is why I think Alexander-Arnold will be a crucial player for this England side in that midfield role, because he is a defender and he can defend, even though his defending has been in question at the very top level. But primarily being a defender, he can do the defensive stuff for a midfielder, and we know he's got extreme quality going forward and great delivery.
And a lot of energy as well.
Enormous amount of energy, all that kind of stuff. And so, but the reason why I think I sort of want to see a midfield three of maybe Rice, Bellingham, and perhaps a Maddison or a Foden. And then I think to myself, but what if we come up against Spain, who can keep the ball, or France? You saw what happened in the second half against Italy. In Italy, not a great Italian side at the moment. England couldn't get the ball back, despite having not that precise team, but some of the players. And you think, well, go on and back yourself, go and do it. And you think, yes, against the small teams, when he lets everybody off the lead, like against North Macedonia, you see what can happen. But I understand. I don't know if I agree with it or not. I'm caught in two minds. I understand why Southgate's like, yeah, but if we try that, the back door is completely left open.
Yeah, you get one go at it.
You get one go at it. The centre-back partner for John Stones is not determined yet. And that is up to, and Southgate needs to get someone in there, because at the current rate, it shouldn't be Maguire starting. Of course, it shouldn't be. And it gives Declan Rice an awful lot of work to do. And Rice, even at Arsenal, is doing a slightly different role to what maybe he does at England as well. So I do understand the conservative.
There's a lot of questions to be answered.
There's a lot of questions there. And it's kind of like, well, do you actually finally go and do it, or do you not? And this is an age-old debate with England. It's, years ago, it was give Harry Redknapp the job and he'll have a go. This idea of have a go. Just go on, get out there and have a go. And it's like, really? Like, I'm sorry, but I don't think, Gavi or flipping Chukwuemeni or, I don't know, Frankie de Jong or whatever is like, oh, they're going to have a go. Yeah. Well, we'll keep the ball and we'll let them run. You just see what I mean? So I think...
if we hit one of those three players you mentioned, what if we hit them early?
Yeah.
There you are. And there's the solution.
Do you not think England are good enough to keep the ball with the players we have?
Not against the top nations, because that is not in England's DNA yet. Perhaps the next generation coming through, but the Spanish, the French, the Italians, even the Croatians, they've been doing this for decades. It's quite new in our football. I think England against better teams who are going to keep the ball, I understand the conservative approach, but that's where you use the pace and the dynamism on the break. And I think Saka there, Rashford or Sterling.
That's exactly right. So you can play on the break with that formation I talked about.
But against Ukraine, I grant you, I don't think Henderson should have played. I think it would have been... You know what? You could even put in Colin Gallagher there. Well, I did in the squad, Jim. But
I think you could put... I don't think... I'm not really that sure what Conor Gallagher brings personally. But
I think some people were saying they'd rather see him than Henderson,
fine,
for example.
They've got a problem. They need a midfield player that isn't Henderson. They need a centre-back that isn't Maguire. I think we agree on that.
Yeah.
I wanted to also say it's great to have Kyle Walker score for
Well, I think we should turn our attention to Kyle Walker.
Because what a servant he's been. He is just evergreen. I mean, he's some athlete. He basically has the look of a young player making his second or third cap and really trying to impress all the time.
How does he keep that pace up? He must have a particular training regime for it, because it's absolutely phenomenal. The fact that he can also play as a centre-back really, really competently as well and carry the ball out of defence if need be. He's got so much to his game.
Yeah,
I really thought that, because about what his training regime is, because this is the age where you lose that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to keep up with
maybe he's getting stuck into a James Madison roast dinner every Sunday.
Maybe.
It's got energetic principle.
You're right about Kyle Walker. He just goes on and on. He's getting faster.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Mudryk, who is rapid. Mudryk would pick up the ball. Kyle Walker wasn't even in the shot.
Nah.
Then suddenly, it's fine.
But he does that to
At one
everyone.
point, Mudryk fell on the ball.
Yeah, I know. Mudryk was like, "Oh, sod this."
Idea of Kyle Walker.
He's like, I'm not being funny, but Walker's done that to like Mbappe.
Oh, I know.
He's like,
Walker. I mean,
he's the fastest man on earth. If you put him in 100 metres, I did it in about 8 seconds.
It's just remarkable, and I was so pleased for him to score. Because Kane's pass was quality, but so was what Walker did. I think people looked at the pass, because it was great. But Walker to take it down, and I think he said, or somebody said, you think he would have scored quite a few goals like that. The way he took it so nonchalantly. But I love the way he celebrated as well.
But that run for the goal, I do. Maybe giving Southgate credit for this isn't necessarily. He's not maybe a particularly big feather in his cap, but I thought the use of the fullbacks was quite interesting because Chilwell did what he played for Chelsea, where he was on the edge of the box for ages at times, often in the middle, and Kyle Walker making that run because he was encouraged to make that run. I think it did help out wide having those two a bit more involved.
Yeah, and you should give Ukraine credit as well.
Yeah,
they defended very well, and they looked. Well, up to a point, dangerous on the break until Kyle Walker would snuff it out. But I think one of the worrying things for England is when Ukraine did come forward and that ball was slipped down the flank and crossed. As soon as that ball was played, I remember thinking,
Yeah,
it was quite a slick move, though.
It was a slick move.
I think you're absolutely right. We should give them credit, but every bit of that move was done perfectly.
Yeah,
I think it's also important to point out. We haven't got to get into too much detail about it, but it's unimaginable what a lot of those players are going through at the moment as well. What their families are going through, suffering that kind of the illegal invasion of their country, and they're having to play their home games in a different country. And there was actually a mention in the Athletic last week that Mudryk, I'm just bringing it out because you mentioned him, he's found it really tough for lots of different reasons, and it's kind of understandable. And in that kind of situation, it's worth understand they're human beings, and for them to get a point was an amazing credit to them. And Zinchenko said himself after the game, it was an amazing result for us. Seemed quite emotional about it, understandably so. So for them to be able to concentrate on their football, even in any kind of way, is incredible. Really,
and also for someone like Mudryk to be picked up from where he's from to suddenly go, right, you're in England.
Yeah,
there might even be a bit of guilt for some people who they're just far away from it.
I think his family are back in Ukraine, and that must be something that you are just constantly thinking about 24 hours. You probably think about it in your sleep. It's just unimaginable.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Great point for them, and it's all to play for.
Really. But the takeaway, Marcus, from this game is that still undefeated, England march on.
Look, it takes it takes a very, very special British team to win 5 out of 5 in the qualifiers, of course. The Bonnie Scots know all about that.
Yeah, of course they do.
But we talked about them on Ramble React.
They'll be confident, I think, ahead of the game.
Indeed they will. Ireland lost 2-1 to the Netherlands. Andy called the Netherlands a good Burnley on Friday, and Wout Weghorst scored again. How about that?
Yeah.
Wout Weghorst is an absolute weapon at international level.
I kind of feel bad for him.
I do a bit.
Because I feel like every time he scores, someone goes, this is the nation of Marco van Basten. What are you doing here? Well, I've just scored.
It seems to be affecting him as well, because on a couple of occasions yesterday, I think at one point he was talking to the referee, and at one point, I think even someone on the Dutch bench, he had this look of utter disdain that anyone would even dare to address him. I thought he might even get sent off.
But we touched a bit on this last week when Weghorst scored 2 really crucial goals in the quarterfinal of the World Cup against Argentina, right? And it's like, was it? He's still kind of the butt of a joke.
But he scuffed what he got on the end of a cross.
Does it count?
Yeah, exactly.
Have we moved on?
I know, but it was a damning loss for Ireland, of course.
It was.
Their chances of qualification are all but over. I mean, they might. There's a tiny chance through the Nation League playoffs. Just take my word for that. I'm not going to explain it, but so it's not completely gone, but it's obviously very, very difficult now. And Stephen Kenny, who came in a little while ago, he's failed to qualify for the last Euros, of course, the World Cup, and it's looking very, very unlikely.
And it's bad news. Basically, it shouldn't go unsaid that how much easier it has become to qualify for the Euros now.
Yes,
is a pretty damning indictment, because really the way they expanded
They're
that tournament, they are, but the way they expanded that tournament was essentially, really, for lots of different reasons, but essentially for countries of the profile of Republic of Ireland to have a better chance of qualifying. Hence, Wales have found some success, and obviously that when they've gone there, they've actually shown what they can do. It was very, very difficult because there was only 16 teams before for teams of that profile to qualify.
Yeah,
and really, under him, they've basically just fluffed their line. I mean, there's not really much else to say.
I mean, they've lost 4 out of 5. I understand.
Yeah, and the one they won was against Gibraltar.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that 2 of those games against France. You can't, obviously lost to the Dutch, but Yeah, I think when the qualification campaign started, when they lost 1-0 at home to France, there was hope, and now it's kind of it's run away from them, really.
It's such a shame as well because they went 1-0 up, and granted through a penalty, but the crowd were up. It was looking good. They were playing some tidy passing. They were pressing well.
Yeah,
absolutely. But for them to then fall behind to what was a very avoidable penalty.
Great ball from Gak.
Yeah, but the ball from Frankie de Jong that kind of was part of the Weghorst goal was magnificent as well. And that's the sort of thing that is just going to happen to you at some point. But Koeman changed the setup in the second half, and it was just a completely different game from then.
Yeah, well, and they've got the quality that Ireland don't. I mean. Yeah,
like Wout Weghorst.
They don't have a Wout Weghorst. It's as simple as that. Northern Ireland, they lost 1-0 to Kazakhstan, their fifth straight defeat as well. So yeah, it's been a damning qualification campaign for them as well. So not good news from Ireland or Northern Ireland as well. I think we can say good news from Spain though, because Luis Rubiales has finally resigned as president of the Spanish Football Federation.
The world's most embarrassing midlife crisis.
Can I argue that it's not good news? It's actually just neutral news because this is the bare minimum of what should have happened. And he's actually resigned like a complete prick anyway. He's not actually taken any accountability.
Do you mean that he resigned an interview with Piers Morgan? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's the format now, isn't it?
When I read that, I thought, what the...
Good old Piers. He'll just pass up no opportunity to be we
as we know now from the way Piers Morgan operates, he's going to be a Rubiales ultra.
Yes, yeah. Oh, totally.
Yeah.
He'll be really supportive of his new blog or whatever, and as he becomes some sort of horrible right-wing demon.
Rubiales could have got an element of credit though if he'd have gone, right, now I've resigned, Piers, and the deal was you also resign.
The situation is that the moment this happened, he was always going to have to resign.
Yeah.
Right. It's just the measure of the man's ego and the size of midlife crisis he's been through means that it's taken as long as it's taken, and he's basically pulled as many people down with him and embarrassed himself over and over again until the inevitable happened. I mean, I think Jim's right. Ultimately, we shouldn't be celebrating this as good news. We should be celebrating it as news that had to happen and was always going to happen at some point.
But men like him, they've always got some sort of Macbeth complex, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. This is it. He's taken no responsibility. If you've not seen the quotes, he's essentially saying he's resigned because everyone else involved in the organisation that he's working in is now so tainted and is so wrong about him that the conditions are impossible for him to carry on anyway. So he might as well resign. It's absolutely pathetic.
Yeah.
He said he came to the decision after speaking to his daughters. So it's like he just remembered he had. Oh God, yeah, bloody hell, I've got daughters.
Wonder what they think.
Also, you could have played that as a card, couldn't he? Because
I'm
a girl dad, so
hashtag girl dad on this t-shirt.
Yeah. So I'm a girl dad, so that woman I kissed must have been into it. Because that's what he still hasn't acknowledged that it wasn't consensual. That's the worst thing about it. And the fact that they then tried to essentially say that Jennifer Hermoso was lying about that, and it was consensual, and etc. 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 There were like 2 or 3 separate horrendous things in here that have all been tied into one.
Indeed. Well, he's gone. That's the main thing.
English media, typewriters ready, please. He's going to talk about Harry Maguire now. Hoe vond je hem de laatste tijd? Hij pakt rood tegen Watford.
He's really shit.
Welcome back to the Football Ramble.
Yeah.
Look more.
I think if England had a clean sheet over the weekend, then maybe we wouldn't have played that clip out. Harry would have done his job.
Germany 1, Japan 4. It's happened again. And Hansi Flick, who insisted he was the right man for the job after the game, has been sacked.
He's got the flick.
Yeah. Luke Moore, I want to give you the honour of reading out one of the most incredible stats I've heard in recent years.
Yeah. Marcus's record on the Betfair. No, Hansi Flick is the first German manager to be sacked since the role was created in 1926. That tells you how successful Germany have been at international football, to the point where their managers have consistently, since 1926, been able to choose the time that they want to leave, which is crazy.
It really is quite remarkable.
Not quite what it's been like in England.
Just the succession of managers. I'm border-winning one. Does someone else want to do it?
Yeah.
Mind you, though, in England, I suppose, if you look at it, a lot of them do sort of say this will be my last tournament, or they decide that they leave, like old Keggy did.
So there could be.
Sven said it was his
sorry,
last.
You referenced Keegan there as someone who left on their own terms, a man who resigned in a toilet in Wembley.
Because he wasn't good enough, in his own words.
Yeah, but I'm saying he wasn't sacked. He wasn't sacked.
Then someone pissed on him.
Splashed
on him, all over him.
Yeah, they were aiming for someone else. And, So, but
I haven't taken my trousers down. Oh, no.
Yeah, but I mean, Hansi Flick, it's a fascinating one because when he got the job, I remember Andy and a few of us were saying, this guy's a proper manager.
He won a treble at Bayern not long ago.
Right, Jim, and so
yeah, but I mean, he won a treble at Bayern.
Yeah, but the Champions League is part of that.
Come on, you forgot what the treble was, didn't you? Yeah. You thought it was one of those Man United José Mourinho
they won the League Cup. Go on.
The Intertoto,
Community Shield.
Jim just went. They won the Champions League, Vish, and he just went, the Champions League, Vish. What tournament would you like them to win that's better than that?
The World Cup.
Yeah.
To be fair,
they're not going to be doing that anytime soon.
West Ham did it.
The Club World Cup.
Yeah.
Because you have to win the Champions League to get into it, of course. But he's gone. He's away. He was Yogi Love's assistant from 2006 to 2014. He'd won 70 of his 86 games in charge of Bayern before this job. So, with that stat in mind that you just read there, Luke, it is all quite a crazy situation for the upcoming hosts of the Euros next summer.
Yeah. And I wonder whether the fact that they've not really got an awful lot of competitive football because they are the hosts is kind of part of this. Like the intensity you need really in football is higher than ever. Mm-hmm. And I know that there was a thing, wasn't there, a while back when the teams that it used to be the case that the team who won a tournament wouldn't have to qualify the next time. Because they would be the holders. Yeah. And then I think that everyone was like, well, we don't want to do that because it leaves us so ring rusty when we come to actually play that we'd rather have some competitive games to get there. Germany obviously haven't got that. I don't know if that's factored in, but I mean, what I do know is that they were absolutely diabolical against Japan.
As good as Japan were, they were awful, weren't they? Just kept leaving the door open.
It should have been more goals. I mean, it
absolutely should have been more goals.
Should have been 6 or 7. Junior Ito was amazing. Mitoma was good as well.
No answer to Mitoma, did they?
Ito and Mitoma were just both real thorns in the German side. Nothing they could do about it. It was a complete capitulation, really. And you can understand why sometimes, particularly in international football, because the games don't come around so often, it seems to be a massive factor. The style of a defeat is a really big factor in the decision that's made about a manager's position. Because I think, if they'd lost that game 2-1, they were really unlucky or whatever, perhaps in the situation he's in, he still would have been fired. But when you play like that,
I think that
it was very difficult to make an argument for him.
I think that with Germany, the situation reminds me a little bit of Brazil going into the World Cup when they went and got Big Phil Scolari. And I forget the chap's name who was managing them, but it was quite uninspiring. And they were thinking, we're hosting a tournament soon. So, they sort of panicked and they changed. And I think with Germany, that's definitely the case. I mean, people would have perhaps seen the All or Nothing documentary that came out on Friday, which follows Germany's 2022 World Cup campaign. Of course, they went out on the group stages again. I mean, Germany going out in the group stages of a World Cup, which they did in 2018, for anybody of not even our generation, for any football fan, because they've been so good for so long.
Fucking fantastic.
It was, but they were also the holders. Now, you can put that down to the weird 21st century quirk of most of the World Cup winners going out in the first round of the next tournament, right? If you're going to be really generous, to go out twice in a row in the first round. But that documentary, you just see how kind of chaotic and very un-German national team like it
Players
has been.
Turning up late to meetings now, and we're in danger of kind of leaning towards stereotypes with the idea of kind of efficiency and etc. But the German national team have always been noticeably disciplined and efficient and just no nonsense and very, very serious. The standards are really high. The professionalism is really high. Now, obviously, we're seeing behind the scenes in a way that we've never seen previously in other generations with regular documentaries like this and the sort of journalistic access that we have to the teams now. But that will have been infuriating for Hansi Flick. And it's interesting watching his style as well, because a lot has been made of the fact that he was talking about geese, taking inspiration from geese, as Pep Guardiola did a couple of years ago.
Didn't he?
Yeah, showed them videos of geese. And I think be your own weirdo, firstly. Don't try and mould Pep's strange ideas into something else. But the thing is, there's this idea that this sort of management style is really weird and out there, but actually it's quite David Brent, isn't it? And a lot of them are like this. They're all like Pep and Arteta have got a bit of Brent about them. All of the sort of modern weirdo managers have a bit of Brent about them. But because football in itself is so straight in so many ways, within the context of football, it seems like they're these weird, eccentric mavericks. When actually it's just kind of sort of slightly cringy management speak. But if you get it right, you look like a genius. If you get it wrong, you look like a complete clown.
Definitely.
And that's what's happened here.
He massively got it wrong, and clearly the players didn't take to it by the documentary.
Pep and Arteta get away with that stuff because they're good at it. They're good.
Yeah,
if you're good, no one really questions it, right?
But this has been damned for a while, though, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, just with that documentary in particular, and also this result and the World Cup performance, are we not worried that we're reaching a saturation point of images of a crestfallen Kai Havertz?
Yeah, do you know what?
I feel bad for him now.
I wanted Flick to keep the job as long as possible.
Yeah, because at least focus on him.
Yeah, whereas now they've got time. Although international football's a funny one, because if you think about Morocco in the World Cup, didn't their manager? They got a new manager.
This is ominous, isn't it?
10 minutes before they kicked
they'll
off.
probably win the Euro.
Yeah,
This is your fucking fault again.
Mine.
We should sack Southgate for this very reason.
It won't work.
No. Keep him.
No, but the difference
He's so nice.
But the difference is, though, in Germany they've got probably a lot of other coaches that can coach.
No, they don't really, do they? They're mentioning Louis van Gaal.
No, Rudi Voller was the name mentioned.
Well, Rudi Voller's going to take charge temporarily, isn't he? But the front runner, and obviously it's early days and this may change, appears to be Julian Nagelsmann, which is mad.
But that's just because he's out of work.
Yeah, but he's a new age weirdo, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Little fella.
Wears jeans as well.
Very tight jeans.
On the Voller thing, can I just say, I know Jim said that we can't drift into stereotypes, but if you allow me, just for 10 seconds.
Yep.
The quotes from Bernd Neuendorf and Rudi Voller are amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Bernd Neuendorf said, the national team needs a new impulse. Mm-hmm. And then Rudi Voller said, we expect from them positive impulses. It sounds like the start of a Kraftwerk album. It's an amazing turn of phrase.
We could do with, what's his name? The Topics.
Topics, Daniel Farke.
Get Farke in there.
Yeah.
Get them all in there. But Voller, of course, will be on the bench as interim coach when Germany face France on Tuesday. France. So
I'll do it. Who's next?
Yeah.
I'll do it. Oh, fuck.
Remember, Rudy, you're too old to play again.
Yeah.
It's got to be Klinsmann, isn't it? We'll come to Klinsmann in a minute.
I can't imagine, like you said, whoever it was said about Van Gaal, I can't imagine them getting a Dutchman in.
No, I can't. There's no way they're getting a Dutchman. I mean, with Van Gaal, it was kind of...
Unless Van Gaal convinces them to do it, but his only motivation is to bring them down from the inside.
Which he definitely would do.
Yeah.
It's a win-win for Van Gaal.
Van Gaal, it would be like Brian Clough going to Leeds United. As far as I'm concerned,
throw all your medals, World Cups in the bin. Now that you've done that, brilliant. I'm off. I'll see you later.
Well, Van Gaal, when it was floated to him some of these ideas, he told the media he's not retired yet. He said, Normally I won't coach a club anymore, but a promising country still has a chance to convince me.
What does he mean? Like one of the BRIC nations? What does he mean, a promising country?
It's a dig at Germany. That's the way I interpret it as well. So yes, we shall see. We should say that there's a special OTC Reacts episode with Andy and Archie Rhine-Tut. It's out this morning, unpacking everything about the Flick sacking. So get over to On the Continent to listen to that, because it's fascinating stuff. Coming out of Germany, or the German national team at the moment. But
just enjoy it, guys.
I'm telling you, the current South Korea manager is going to throw his hat into the ring very, very quickly.
Yeah.
That is, of course, Jurgen Klinsmann. South Korea drew with Wales on Thursday. They head up to St James's Park tomorrow night, where they're going to play Saudi Arabia, of course, that's their home stadium now. And Klinsmann, quite oddly, if this equation isn't odd enough, he set up the South Korea training camp in London, which is 460 kilometres away from the ground. Work it out in miles if that's the way you live your life. But the Korean FA said that they didn't know the reason for this location. Why is he doing that? He's got linked. He was used to play for Spurs, maybe access to good facilities. I don't know whether this is relevant, but on Saturday, Klinsmann was named in the squad for a charity match between Chelsea and Bayern at Stamford Bridge.
So what?
Outrageous.
So what he's done?
So guys, we've got 2 days of free time now. So you go and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
We'll be back at the hotel in a couple
After that
of days.
clean sheet against Wales, you deserve time off.
No.
Time off.
We've got a couple of days free time. All I'll say is a recommendation. if you fancy it, flick a bit of ITV on. About 4:30. Some good stuff on. Some great stuff
what
on.
he's basically done.
Can I still play? I'll let you be the judge of that. Flick on ITV1 at 4:30. There's some great stuff on.
I remember when we were at uni and we were driving to a cricket match, and one of my mates was in the passenger seat, and he was like, "Oh shit, I think I've forgotten my forgot my boots at home." So we kind of turned around. We went back to his flat. Went in there. He was gone for about 10 minutes. We're like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I felt a bit peckish, didn't want to spend any money, so I realised I had some ham in, was going to go off, so I made myself a sandwich." Fuck. Just take a detour back to his flat. That's what Jurgen Klinsmann's done there.
Yeah. It's one big ham sandwich.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean,
his managerial career is fascinating. Started as Germany manager, which is phenomenal, really. Took a couple of years off, went to Bayern. Like, he really, really has started at the top. And now he's just coasting in a way that's almost admirable.
You know what it is? It's catch me if you can.
It is. Philip
I like that.
Philip Lahm said that Klinsmann provided so little tactical instruction at Bayern that the players took it upon themselves to meet before kickoff to decide how to play.
That is superb.
At Bayern Munich.
I know. Yeah. Well, they always say that, Bayern obviously would win the league and all the rest of it. Maybe he just thought, well, this is the perfect job for me. I don't really have to.
He resigned from Hertha on Facebook as well, which is great.
Yeah. Oh, man. We should say that Chelsea legends beat Bayern legends 4-0, which was quite fitting. Of course, it was a charity game for the late, great Gianluca Vialli. So it was, sad occasion, of course, but great to see some of his former teammates playing very, very well indeed. Like Zola lit up the place, as you'd expect. In terms of Jurgen Klinsmann, though, the Korean FA didn't let Klinsmann play.
Yeah. So he removed the hotel, no less.
So he's quit.
Well, if you're not going to let me do that.
If I can't show him how to score, how can I coach him?
Do you not think he must have been gutted? He thought, brilliant, I've arranged it all. I'm going to be there.
I can't believe we got away with this.
Yeah.
You know what he's going to do? He's going to manage Germany from South Korea, isn't he?
No, you're talking. I'm telling you, he will throw his hat into the ring for this Germany job.
Yeah.
I mean, him and Voller were a great strike partnership.
They were.
And that'll be his main argument.
But there's talk. There's talk that, like, he's just not. He's not really participating in essentially being a full-time coach in this role.
Look, he's literally phoning it in.
He is, and that's an accusation that's had from before. Because wasn't he living in a different country when he managed Germany for a while?
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously he's got form for this kind of stuff. Andy Brassel of this parish just referred to him over the weekend on the WhatsApp group as just an underrated bellend. Really.
Well, by the way, regarding the controversy surrounding where he lives, which is of course in the States.
It's not controversy. He's just living at home.
Yeah. Well, Klinsmann said at the weekend, if I do it the same as people before at the Korean FA, there will be no improvement. So if he goes to move to South Korea, there'll be no improvement.
Sorry.
You will have a Korean Klinsmann, but not Klinsmann.
I don't think they want either.
No.
Get the impression that on his Zoom, the Hollywood sign is very visible in the back.
Yeah. But you've got two choices: the real me or a Korean me.
Yeah.
And you do. I'm telling you, you don't want the other one.
I like Sun Heung-min, who just said, "I'm sure he knows what he's doing." how sure though? Because that is crucial in this.
No, I'm captaining in North London now. Can I get home as well? Or
I love the fact where you don't want Korean me. Why? Are we that bad?
Also, when he's like, if you do it as before, well, okay, brilliant. Well, the person before you didn't have beer at breakfast. You could have a beer at breakfast. You know what? I might. Yeah.
Where does it end?
If it will help, I will.
Where does it end? Let us finish the pod by going to South America. Neymar surpassed Pele's record as Brazil's all-time male top scorer on Friday. Scored twice in Brazil's 5-1 win over Bolivia.
I love the fact that Neymar, that is an amazing thing.
It is unbelievable.
Pele is, for many people, the greatest player of all time. Certainly, the most influential player of all time. And Neymar has scored more goals for Brazil than Pele.
Yeah.
But the problem is, Neymar is such a bellend that no one really cares.
Well, and
outside of Brazil.
But do you worry, though? Because Neymar, obviously, Michael Cox wrote a good piece in The Athletic about Neymar, just putting into context actually his achievements in European football, and says he's probably the best Brazilian player, forward player, we should state, that's played in Europe, perhaps of all time, but certainly in the modern era, because people might say Kaká or Ronaldinho, and he explains why. Actually, if you look at what they achieved and so on, Neymar is right up there, and for longevity playing at the top level in Europe as well. But that move from Barcelona to PSG disappointed so many people because he doesn't want to play second fiddle to Lionel Messi. He wants to go to PSG and be the main man. Then obviously Kylian Mbappe's there and kind of plays second fiddle to him. He goes to Saudi Arabia. He's now second fiddle to Mitrovic. So, it's a bit... I think people have criticised him so much for this, but what he means to the Brazil team, even though they've not come close to winning the World Cup, it is undeniable.
Well, they love an icon.
And he's a true icon.
They're so passionate about the national team in a way that's just infectious, and that is, I think, probably hard to understand for most nations. And they base a lot of importance on the figureheads, and Neymar has been that, and he's consistently been that for a long time.
Yeah, but the problem with Neymar's reputation in Europe, and I attack those points you make there. The problem with Neymar's reputation in Europe is one of if you're a great football player, people will kind of accept it if the first thing you think of when you think of him is, oh, great player but a bit of a twat.
Yeah.
If people go, what an absolute twat, but he's also quite a good player.
Yeah.
Also, it fucks you.
I have some Brazilian friends, and it's a small sample size, but
I've got Brazilian friends as well, Jim.
Yeah,
how many have you got?
3 or 4.
I've got 104.
Right. Yeah. Well, the 3 or 4 I know think Neymar's a bellend as well.
Yeah.
So perhaps it's.
I mean,
that's 100%.
Exactly.
That's 100% of him.
So all of Brazilians hate the man as well.
All of them. Yeah.
Blimey O'Reilly. Well, I think that that Neymar's career will be remembered very fondly in years to come. I don't think, whenever he retires, which is in the next 5 years or something like that, I think, when people look back, they'll say this is a guy who inspired, was a part of that great Barcelona front. A little bit of time needs to pass, and then we will really see. Because I think as well, Jim, I think when for my money, maybe it was kind of back in those days where you didn't have so much football content online, but the likes of Kaká and Ronaldinho came to PSG first, I think it was in Europe.
Yeah.
Some Brazilians, like the great Ronaldo, go through the Dutch league.
He went to PSV,
yeah. And then Kaká, I forget where he went, but of course Milan. But you're not given such a run up at these players, if you see what I mean. We all knew Neymar's quality. Yeah. It was like, when is this guy going to come along? And of course, as he was in the same side, it was like, this guy's going to be the next Messi. And one could think that he could have been if he'd have perhaps stayed at Barcelona, or he didn't maybe get 1 or 2 injuries or whatever. But he's got the record.
But like, could he be the next Messi? And there was a time, as you said, that that was going to play through. And the fact that it hasn't, I don't necessarily think that's a slight on his overall legacy. It might be a slight on him and his motivation, but still a remarkable player.
Oh, remarkable player, but also
still a remarkable player to watch.
He played in the Messi Ronaldo era, like I say, with Kaká and Ronaldinho, with regards to stats.
Strikers. Think of the number of strikers who've had a pop at that record.
Yeah. Of course.
Close.
But as I say, those other great players, they didn't have those Messi and Ronaldo stats and just ridiculously.
Yeah, but the reason
they didn't have that over their heads.
The reason I mentioned the idea about him being a bit of a dickhead is because that is relevant.
It is. You're right.
Because the reason, I would argue, the reason Neymar, I don't think you can necessarily argue Neymar hasn't got the same amount of ability as a top player of all time. But the problem is, look at Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, 2 players you've mentioned. What else do they do other than just play football? Neymar is well known for doing the things he does outside the game, and I'm not judging him for that.
But if Neymar's came along 10 years earlier, or...
But hang on, I'm not judging him for that. But what I'm saying is, what you need at this level in the modern game is you need to be able to play and just play. And he doesn't do that.
And that's what I mean. If he'd have come along 10, 15 years earlier, this conversation would be different.
Yeah. And also, he comes along in an era where there's so much, as you said, there's so much more football content. We're so much more aware of what people do in their private times and when they jet off so and so. Or
but the fact is, he did play in this era.
Family.
He did play in this era.
And I think the Brazil coach's quote after the game is entirely indicative of what we're talking about. He said he came to do what he did: have fun, to score 2 goals, and break the record. Whoever says that about Messi or Ronaldo? Oh, he come to have fun. No one says that.
I think that's a bit harsh.
They don't, because that's not the type of persons that play and the personalities they are as players.
Did Richarlison go to have fun?
No, he had a terrible time.
Well, he intended to, but
apparently
didn't really work out that way.
in tears on the bench.
Yeah.
That's sad, isn't it?
It is sad, but it's also quite funny.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think a footballing nation like Uruguay go out to have fun when they play football?
They do,
go
in their own way.
Fun.
yeah, their own way.
They go out to eat other people's fun.
It's like Thanos, isn't it? I bet Thanos is having a great time.
Yeah. So with Bielsa at Uruguay, and they beat Chile 3-1 in their qualification campaign. What do we think of that? I mean, do we think that those players will think, why are we running so much? Just keep lives out.
No, because I think he sold it as like, look, you are like nasty pricks on the field. How would you like to be nasty, like the fittest nasty pricks?
Nasty, fast pricks.
Yeah.
Someone also, you have to forgive me because I forget who it was, but someone made a really interesting point about Bielsa taking over at Uruguay. He said that he obviously could totally revolutionise what happened at Chile, and they went on and did what they did.
Oh,
and he said the one thing missing from Chile was the fact that they, as a nation, they didn't have the experience or the personality in football at international level to believe they could really do it.
Yeah.
Uruguay do have that.
Yeah.
They are massively
much more
confident
tradition
all
than
the
Chile.
time, have a lot more tradition, have a lot more reputation for punching above their weight. And
just punching in general.
Yeah, well, the person who wrote the
biting as well.
actually just said, you know what? They're just a bit more arrogant. They believe it themselves, which could be a real deciding factor in how they go about doing this.
But that's it. I mean, but Bielsa's got a very distinct style, as the Uruguay as well. If those two can combine, then they're my tip for the 2026 World Cup.
Well, I hope Bielsa stays around long enough for that.
Oh yeah, there's that.
Because sometimes he only stays around for a day or two.
It'll be great while it lasts.
Yeah,
I think we can all agree on that. There we are, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to the Football Ramble, part of the Acast Creator Network. We're back on Wednesday. Do follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Football Ramble. And don't forget to subscribe on your podcast app. Thank you, Luke Moore.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim Campbell.
Thank you.
Thank you for Dujan Hantaraja.
Thank you.
And thank you, Neymar. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching another fantastic clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Make sure you click like on this video and subscribe to the channel, which means you will not miss a single upload.